Let's make sure I'm sharing the right thing. Okay. So nice, quick little mini lesson, how to do 8th grade reflections, or reflections for 8th grade. It's pretty straightforward. There's only 2 different reflections you have to know, and that's going over the x-axis and going over the y-axis. And so there's 2 algebraic rules that go along with that. So we start off with this first one here. We see our shape. LMNO is flipped over, and that's going over the x-axis here. And as we go over the x-axis, you can see all the points that were above the axis get reflected down below. So when we go over the x-axis, our x values don't change, but we need the opposite of our y values. So our rule here is going over the x-axis, and it's going to be x negative y. That's always going to be our rule. So if we go over the x-axis, here's our rule. Every time, this will not change. Your x value stays the same, the y value changes. So anything positive becomes negative, anything negative will become positive. So if we have the point 3, 2, and we go over the x-axis, this would become 3, negative 2. Negative 2, negative 9 would become negative 2, positive 9. And 6, negative 1 would become 6, positive 1. That's it. Nice and simple. You don't even have to think about it. If you go over the x-axis, you just flip the sign of all your y values. Okay? And then the same is true, except different, if you go across the y-axis. So if we go across the y-axis, our y will stay the same, and we flip the sign of our x value. So same thing. So 5, 2 would become negative 5, positive 2. Let's see, negative 2 becomes positive, negative 8 stays the same, and 3, negative 7 would become negative 3, negative 7. So don't overthink it. There's no trick questions here. So if you go over the x-axis, all your y values change. If you go over the y-axis, all your x values change. That's it. So all the questions you're going to see are basically, can you find the rule? So I would have these 2 rules written down somewhere. So every time you get to a question, all you need to look at is, this one says it's reflected on the y-axis. So what did we say was our rule for that? It says xy goes to negative x, y, and then we just pick that answer. Nothing to it. So a lot of these, because there's only 2 rules, you're going to see the same kind of questions again and again. It's just making sure, can you consistently say if it's going across the x-axis, xy goes to x negative y. If you go across the y-axis, you go from xy to negative x, positive y. It's the whole thing. That's reflections. Not too bad. Just take some time and reflect on what you learned.